It's true that a woman you can pray your children into destiny. It is true. There is no prayer said over, no matter how stubborn a child is right now, no matter how much they look like they are not fitting into destiny, there's no prayer said over a child that is a waste. God does not stop prayers, he answers them. When I see mothers who can pray, and I'm not talking about vain repetition, I'm talking about revelational prayers. Lord, show me about my child. What are the challenges of this child? If you're a mother here and God is not talking to you about your children, you are parenting in blindness. At least God should be able to tell you, who is this child? Where is this child going to? What is becoming of this child? My mother said that to me. That's one very fundamental thing she said to me. She said, I don't know how to make you become who God says, so I'm asking God to help me. And that's the first prayer I'm going to pray. Whether you have a child or you don't have a child, whether they are adults or whether they are young, I make the first prayer. When you don't have the capacity to make your child who your child is supposed to be, even if you don't know the compass and you don't know how to make that child become, I pray for you today. Let God that gave you those children, at the sound of your amen, let God make them who he wants them to be. Your weaknesses will not speak against your children. Your failures will not speak against your children. Today I pray for your own children. Any child currently going through any attack, I pray today, let those attacks be broken right now. Father, mother, can you have a relationship with God that God can tell you when your children are struggling? Can God even tell you what is about to happen in the future so that you can forestall it? It will not meet you like an emergency. Am I communicating? You know, there are things that happen in my life now. I know I pray, but there's some that will happen. I will tell myself, that's my mother's prayer. I know I pray, but there are things that will happen. When you see the way they will play out, I sit back and say, Kai, that is a broken woman's prayer. That is a broken. There was something I've always shared this with you, how my mother, I got a job with the World Bank project on HIV and AIDS. Then I had even gotten a job with the UN. And I went to show my mother, and I said to my mother, our life has changed. I said, our life has changed. My mother was the most important person to me. So I went to tell my mother, now you will live in my house with this salary. I will change everything. I was excited, telling my mom this, telling my mom that. My mom was so uninterested. I told her, why? She said, everything you are telling me is not what God told me about you. Let me tell you, parents, some things your children will celebrate, you need to pray about them and be sure that most of them will not die in it. Pray about them. Not how exciting it is means that God is there. And God, my mother told me, that's not what God told me. That's not what you should do. Hey, as in, it's not what God told you. I told my mother that we quarreled that day. I quarreled with my mother. I said, it's not what God told you. What God told you is that way. And you're telling me to go into full-time ministry. Which example do I have around me to show me that if I go into full-time ministry, nothing will happen to me? Which example? No example. Say it's not what God told. That I will serve God. I will serve God. If people understood my dialect, I would have spoken it for. She would that I should serve God. That what God is saying, I should forget everything and serve God. I should serve God. I should serve God. I should serve. So I asked my mother, I said, so if I'm serving God and I get hungry and all that, he said, if I die, I'll go to heaven. Because she too, she did not have an example of serving God, that you will be fine serving God. So she didn't have that example. All she knows is that just do the right thing, serve God, and then die and go to heaven. I told my mother, not me. And that's how I kept doing until my mother died. But see, one very striking thing, my mother took ill, and then when I came to see her the night before she died, so I came to see her. So whenever I come, I'm always the one praying for her because she was sick. So but that night, my mother said she wanted to pray for me, that I should kneel down, let her pray for me. So and I knelt down. My mother began to pray for an hour 7 minutes. My mother was praying. She was crying. She was praying. She was crying. She was praying. She was crying. And when she was done, she told me, nothing will happen to you. And my mother was full of smiles. And when I was ready to go, she now called me by my Igbo name, and she said to me that, Shebi, I know that this has sickness, that if I had what it took, that she will still not be sick. So I told her that I'm trying, that I don't know what else to do, that what is happening to you is not something that will kill somebody tomorrow, that I'm trying, that medications, we're giving medications and all. She said no, that Shebi, I know that I've not reached that height in the spirit where I can speak to this her sickness and it will go. She said to me, no matter what you are doing, try and get to that height where sicknesses like mine can hear your voice and go. And as far as I was concerned, I just felt like, she likes talking about God, everything, God. I told her, yes, I will get to that height where sickness is that. So I was getting offended. I said, look at this woman, all the trouble I'm going through for you, you are not appreciating. It's now I should get to the height. Come and carry me to the height. Let me reach the height. And the next day, I heard my mom was dead. The only word that came back to me was, get to the height so that sicknesses like mine can hear your voice. And I made up my mind that whatever it would take, I wish I were me now. My mother would not have died. But it's not late. So what I could not do for her, I will do it for my generation. So when people say to me, calm down, you're being too extra, you don't have to do all these prayers every night and all of that, I would never want it to be said that a man prayed and demons ridiculed your voice. Never. So sir, it's about how your spirit man is stratified. There's a place where you grow. There are things that cannot withstand your voice. My mother was my treasure, and I want to tell every young person here, please take care of your mother. They are not perfect, but love your mother. You probably wouldn't know how valuable your mom is until you wake up and not find your mother anymore. Love your mother. Take care of your mother. They don't have to ask you for you to give them. I know they can be quite a handful most times. They can complain. They can do. Just be nice. Be kind to your mother. Please be kind to your mother. Be kind to your parents as well. Be kind to, remember your parents. Remember them. Show them how much you care and how much, if God blesses you in whichever way, let your parents feel it. Let them feel that God has blessed you. Let them know that God, you see, if anything happens to you, the side chicks won't be there. If anything happens to you, I'm telling you the truth. It's so easy how people move on. But your parents will have a hard time to move on. It will scar them so much. And I want to tell you, it was my mother that started this thing. He said, you cannot have war in the morning and you are sleeping in the night. She pushed me into what it means to be an intercessor. She pushed me what it means to pray and all of that. Let me say this. I'm sure in my mother's mind, she didn't know, will this stick with this child? Will he forget it at some point? Would it be, don't call your children children. When you relate with your children, you are not speaking to their mind. You are talking to their spirit. A child can be distracted, acting distracted, and all of that. Please don't allow the distraction distract you. You are speaking to the spirit of the child. When your children are at sleep, open the scriptures, read over their lives, declare over their lives. No matter what your children are doing, speak. My mother was a master in prophetic action. And I said it at the last women's program where I was speaking, and I said to them, my mother would, while she is frying in the kitchen and all of that, in a local kitchen, our local kitchen, with all that fire and all of that. So when I come into the kitchen, my mother would drag a stool, those kitchen stools, in the kitchen, and told me that I should sit at the seat of the kings. That I should sit at the seat of the kings. That this thing I am sitting now, where I am sitting now, is the seat of. Everything is prophecy for my mother. She prophesied over everything. Things that made sense, things that did not make sense. Everything is prophetic. People of God, every mother here, you have the pictures of your children. Prophesy. If you find their clothes anywhere, prophesy. Anything that is happening, prophesy. And I don't forget, and I just remembered it. Ordinary wooden kitchen stool. My mother called it seat of the kings. Why don't you call your own child's dress of the kings? Find something, and because they cannot fail. They cannot fail. They cannot fail. If you see when your own destiny came under attack, you can imagine what your children are going through right now. And half of it they are not telling you. Half of it they are not telling you. And the truth is that it doesn't even matter what happened when you were in ignorance. That belongs to yesterday. It doesn't even matter how you failed. That was in your yesterday. But what matters is who you are right now.